A big thanks to the After Drive team for the entertaining program. Star FM sounding good all the time, and thank you for choosing us. Good evening. My name is George Msumba. The program is State of Affairs, the premium current affairs show that brings you fair, current, and objective discussions and analysis of current events in Zimbabwe. The big story of the week has been the forced deportations of Africans, who include a large number of Zimbabweans from South Africa on the 30th of June. The build-up to the 30th was punctuated by the inhumane treatment of Africans as they jostled to meet the deadline. This includes sleeping outside processing centers in the cold in South Africa, as well as terrifying and traumatizing actions from the people of that country towards legal and illegal foreigners. Probably it is too early to really fathom and understand the full repercussions of this move on South Africa itself and its relations with the continent at large, as well as the retainees. What we do know is that there was a huge outcry when news filtered out that a South African music group had been invited to perform in Zimbabwe. With emotions running high, some said it was too early to invite the foreign band to Zimbabwe's shores, considering how fellow Zimbabweans are being treated in South Africa. So the call was to have the band removed from the planned show in solidarity with the traumatized retainees. Others have called it for an outright ban of all musicians from South Africa. Others are of the view that it's inconsequential and we must not break relations with artists from that country who are not in any way involved in the xenophobia being exhibited. What are your thoughts? To help me delve into this emotional issue, I have with me in the studio National Arts Council of Zimbabwe Chief Executive Officer Napoleon Nyanhi. Welcome to Star FM.
Good evening, George. Thank you for having me. Good evening to the listeners.
To you, our valued listeners, please feel free to join the discussion on our WhatsApp platform 0772 162 651. And we will be taking your messages and your views on this current issue, which is trending as far as the arts are concerned. But Napoleon, just to regale our listeners, the role of the National Arts Council in Zimbabwe's artistic landscape. What is the role of the National Arts Council?
Thank you very much. The National Arts Council of Zimbabwe is a statutory body that was established by an Act of Parliament, National Arts Council of Zimbabwe, Act Chapter 25.07 of 1985. This Act mandates the National Arts Council to spearhead arts promotion and development in the nation of Zimbabwe. It mandates the Arts Council to spearhead programs that establish and create interest in the artistic space in the country, and also spearhead educational advocacy for the arts. Therefore, what we have taken as our driving agenda for the short term, where we are now, short to medium term, is we currently exist to raise the level of survival and the level of level rema artists kana kuti raramo yema artists kuti vakwanise kuwana chimuko kubva mubasa ravanobata. We would like our artists to be able to make a good living from their work, and would also like our artists to be able to have appreciation locally. Locals in Zimbabwe, ndo panopinda education atanchitaura, would like to teach our locals in Zimbabwe to appreciate art and to appreciate it as a viable profession for their children, and also as a viable profession even as an adult. One way to take seriously basa ravanenge vachiita rema arts.
What is your relationship in the landscape of music promotion, artistic promotion? How do you work with promoters? Do they consult you, or they just do things on their own?
Promoters are governed and regulated by the National Arts Council of Zimbabwe. So if someone would like to become an arts promoter or a music promoter, those are the most famous ones, they have to come and register with the National Arts Council of Zimbabwe. the National Arts Council of Zimbabwe issues them with a promoter's license that gives them the right to host events, host concerts, festivals, and different exhibitions. It gives them the right to, employ my musicians short term, but musicians and artists who are into performing arts are given, the promoters are given the right to employ them. By employment, I mean kumubuka for an event. That is employment in our records. Toti artist awana employment for this event or for this season. Assign a contract yekuno perform ku festival yakati, and that we consider to be employment. Therefore, my promoters are then governed by certain parameters in their operations, and those come from the National Arts Council.
We will talk a little bit more later, if time permits, on the role and also your thoughts around the artistic issues which are happening. And we will delve into that. But I know that the topic that we are discussing might not allow us to go into the other roles that the National Arts Council plays. So let me get into the main topic of the day, because recently some Zimbabweans have called for a boycott of South African musicians performing in Zimbabwe following reports of forced deportations of migrants from South Africa. There was Mafiki Zolo. They've come here on a regular basis, but this time around, the people said, no, we must boycott South African musicians. What is your reaction to those calls?
This is a rather complex issue, but I'm happy that we can maybe give it some time so we can unpack it and reduce the complexity of this matter. The issue of alleged xenophobia in South Africa, the issue of that being a socio-political challenge going on in that country, which has affected several other African countries, Zimbabwe included, if not mostly affected, because vazhinji vari kutargetwa vachinzi maforeigners maZimbabweans. Right. This issue, a lot of people have said, should not then filter into the arts. There are a number of ways that it does filter into the arts. Mainly because chese chinoitwa between Zimbabwe neimwe nyika pachizobhadharwa mari, it is trade. Panenge patoitika trade. The arts in this country are a viable and a very important economic activity. Panouya, an artist from South Africa coming into this country, they come and they trade their artistic work for money, and Zimbabweans pay their hard-earned money to this South African artist or this Nigerian artist or whoever, wherever they'll be coming from. Therefore, in this matter, kana iri a political, social-political issue, inonopinda muma economic issues, yonopinda muma diplomatic issues. This is an issue of cultural diplomacy. Yako affectwa ne political diplomacy. Dziri kuvhiringidzwa nevanhu vari kumhanya mastreets. Vari kutovhiringidza diplomacy yenyika yavo, because dzimwe nyika zhinji dziri kupopota, dziri kutarisa izvo dzichiti zviri kumboitirwei. Hamusi kuona here kuti muri kuvhiringidza. But I guess it's not our role to get into, their internal issues. But kana zvakuzoaffecta isusu, takutoona kuti pane machallenges aakuitika evanhu vemunyika muno vari kudzingwa. And vachidzokerai kumusha kwenyu, madiplomatic issues anonosvika achinoaffectawo cultural diplomacy. Kunova iko kunozosvika manje musicians nevanhu ava vatakutaura. So mukanzwa vanhu vachizoita an outcry yekuti why then, in a situation where diplomatic things are failing in other areas, social diplomacy kuri kufaila because on the ground uko ari kuti hatikudei dzokerai kumusha kwenyu. Isusu ivovo yatoti tinokudai uye kuno kuti kupei mari. I think that's where the social conversation is happening, to say hatisi kubva tanyanya kubva tazvidzikisira pasi, you know. So I think that's the first level of complexity.
We are getting deeper into it. We'll get deeper into it. But just out of interest, as we build up into this topic, when foreign artists come, there has always been that complaint yekuti tinonyanya kubhadhara vekunze mari yakawanda zvoti gap racho rakakurisa neyatinopa vemunomu, zvoti munomu vanotofarira kuuya because inenge iri muso iri USD futi US dollar. Imi seNational Arts Council munombozviongororawo here izvozvo, nyaya yemabhadharirwo anoitwa maartists kuti ngaticlosei gap at least woti tive munomu dzatinopa kuSouth Africa tiremekedzewo vemunomu tichivapawo yakada kufanana neyoyo.
Munoona ndinokutendai nemubvunzo. Now we're getting into the second level of complexity of this matter. The second level is the low self-esteem of our people as a nation. Esteem yekuti tinozosvika pakuti anything that is Zimbabwean is not good enough. Chikanzi chabva kunze, taakusekerera, taakuchida, taakuda kuti chichiuya. We've got a challenge as a nation, and that challenge is amplified to entertainment side, where we somehow think kana akauya achibva kuNigeria, akauya achibva kuSouth Africa or kuAmerica, akosha. But what I've also noticed, being involved and working with my promoters, I've actually realized there are specific local acts that they ensure kuti paposta ipapo panofanira pana local act ningi because anonza vanhu. And at the end of the day, you end up finding kuti the South African ari kunzwa for zita, and it because anenge kana tuma hits, but pachazoita chimwe chigogodera chilocal chatoza ndo chiri kudiwa nevanhu, ndo chichazofadza vanhu. But paposta tiri kuisa kuti zvishamisire because maZimbabweans anoda zvinhu zvinoshamisira. So ipapo I call this the second level of complexity, because somehow this may be a chance. I don't know how long this social moratorium will last, where they are saying ngatimbomirai kuti vauye because pari kupisa. And I agree with that. I agree with it for security, for their own safety. Ivo vacho vari kuuya vacho hatidi kuti vanhu vasitanga kukanda makeni pastage. And it, for the safety of my promoters, for the safety of equipment dzavo, and these events to remain sane. Right now, things are charged ngavambomira. But we don't know to last how long. Indaitoda kuti zvimbolasta kana gore chero. Vanhu vedu munomu vambodzidzirawo kufarira vanhu vavo. You know, so that we can just gain an appreciation for our own. Because there is too much noise in during that space, because tinodastere kubuka vanhu vekunze, tinodastere, and even munane one song anobhukwa agokwidzwa ndege agogariswa mahotera agobhadharirwa zvakati agopiwa mafruits and what mubackstage, and vedu atiri kuzeta ari kunza vanhu chaichai anenge ari paposta iroro. And whether ndiFelinand, ndiNati O, ndiMaster H, ndiJapreza, ndiWinky D, nditami Moyo, whoever that person is, vari kutoziva ndiye achaunza vanhu, but uitamisira kuti zvishamisire, because mazimba achangouya kungoti angomuona. Where's the value? So we are over. I totally agree with you, and I agree with that assertion yekuti tine kamwe kakuisa vanhu ava papedestal, and it's not fair on our local artists. The National Arts Council of Zimbabwe put a clause in our promoters handbook, which says whenever you book a foreign act, you have to have 3 local artists. And it one, there has to be 3. Every promoter is supposed to refer to that promoter's handbook. And they do still, you know, vazhinji, they still adhere to that. But my point still remains, Guti. What is the reciprocity pavanoitawo avo vanombokudedza iwe. Imimi ndimi chete vekuramba muchingoti uyai kumba kwedu, 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 uyai mutiimbire, uyai mutitambire, uyai muti. Ivo havasi kumboonawo kuti munogona here. Havakudedzei, havakudei, vari kutodzokera kumusha kwenyu. So I really feel on a level of just self-appreciation and self-love. All right, maybe hazisi kunakidza, maybe quality is not the same, but tikavada, tikazvienjoya baiginya, zvinotosimudza level racho, because mari yacho hamuchapa vekunze, makupa vemuno.
Our WhatsApp number 0772162651. What are your thoughts on the current topic that we are discussing? Munyika medu ngatitsigirei music yemunyika medu kwete kukoshesa vasiri vedu. Ndimapuranga Homo uyo, the radio ambassador, ari kutaura apo. On a related note, Napoleon, our radio stations, do you feel that you are talking about self-esteem, do you feel also that our radio stations need to play a role in also pushing Zimbabwean music more than yekunze? Because sometimes you find that South Africa not a dominator, and I know that kuma groove, kuma clubs and so forth, they also dominator kudarika yedu. What can be done there? Vamano gona kuti ayedu haina quality. Do you agree with that? What are your thoughts on that in terms of changing the mindset yekuti aiwa self-esteem yedu inofanirwa kukwidzwa nekuda zvedu isusu?
It is absolute rubbish. I do not agree with that assertion yekuti Zimbabwean music is of a lower quality, therefore we don't play it because the Amapiano or the Afrobeat or the hip-hop from overseas has got a higher quality. That is absolute rubbish. The people of Zimbabwe are producing really good work, top-notch quality. Kune mamwe areas where we are behind technologically. There are certain industries where we still have to catch up. I will not say that of our music industry. No way. The world is now a fair playing field. Ma tools ari kushandiswa na music producer ari ku America izvezvi arimo muno munyika. Ari kutoshandiswa nema producers edu. So our quality is competitive. And we are able to do the exact. And one very fascinating things, I'll come to the radio stations. Let me start kuma groove, kuma events, kuma nightclubs, kuma social spots. You will find the DJ will be playing, all these foreign music. Gapangonzi, madadido, so people actually enjoy this. People want to listen to XQ. People want to listen to our local artists. But why? Why are you force feeding them foreign things? And then obviously they'll start to like it. They'll start to enjoy it. A person develops an appetite for what they are fed. Feed them long enough, they'll start to enjoy it. There was a period in this country, now I'm coming to the radio stations. There was a period in this country where the enforcement of the 75% local content was put on the spotlight. And the early 2000s. And then the government was bold enough to go, especially ku national broadcast, 100% local content. I guess that was the only broadcast at the time. But we went as far as 100%. That caused such an outcry. I was a young man back then. I remember also thinking, Sakana Mariah Carey Jones, Ana Tupac, go, Ana Jaru. They were gone. They were simply gone. And we were all forced to listen to Decibel, to Ana Roy and Royce, to Ana Plaxid Diswenika. And there is a movement that grew from that. You know what then brought up Zim hip hop, Zim dancehall, all these Afro things that we now enjoy were birthed at that time. Anana Rocky and all these became pioneers of a new Zimbabwean sound because we developed an appetite for what we were being fed. Now it is commonplace to have a top 20 in a 19 Zimbabwean songs. And one way ngiyazonetsawo ndinozokwana. But people are genuinely voting for their own. I will dare you to go to a 1999 top 20. And it urban top 20 and get go radio 3. Go to 1990 and see if there was a Zimbabwean song in top 10. No chance. No chance. Nana Kid Sweaty, Nana, because we did not have, there was no chance. Zedu music, ana Kelvin and Muzi, Nana Mparutsa, vangasingapiwe a chance yekupindawo. Because they were overshadowed by the big budgets. You get what I'm saying?
Mhm.
They've got big budgets, they've got big opportunities. So they will market TikTok. So our people have no chance to really just push through. Zvingazvimbovharwa kuti vanhu vedu vaitiwo catch up, not because of quality, but they are catching up in terms of space, mental space chaiyo, yekuti munhu amboteerera wanza kuti this is good music, this is good quality stuff. But right now they are overshadowed because of marketing budgets, not because of quality. We've got good quality stuff, isiri kuteererwa. So radio stations, I advocate for radio stations to go beyond the 75% local content inotaurwa mumtemo wenyika. First of all, just adhere to the 75% local content. Those mutemo Broadcasting Services Act yenyika ino. All music on all radio stations, 75% should be local. But ndofunga kuti inofanira kusvika kuzvi90.
All right.
Inofanira kusvika kuzvi90. Tiito catch up because vanhu havasi kuwana chance yekuti vakwanise kumbonyatsoenjoya local music because gari piano, gari
hanzi naEddie Maposa, my guy trade yei maZimbabweans ari kudzingwa wane panyaya yetrade iyoyo ngavaridzire kunyika kwavo. And then hanzi I totally agree we should support local music more. Book more local artists and stop giving money to outside artists. But in order to get to that, we should also start from our radio stations. Okay, why are we playing and listening to outside music from our radio stations? And do you know that in other countries on their radios, they don't even play other countries' music like we do? There has to be a change. Tatenda and Bulawa, thank you for that message. And then another message here from Mudara Mazani Padombo Hands. Let's be ethnocentric, love of one's country. Some of us shun our own country in favor of foreign countries. Look at what is happening in South Africa now. So these are some of the sentiments which are coming through on our WhatsApp number 0772162651. We are also live streaming on our Facebook page, on Star FM Facebook page. You can also catch the conversation there. Continuing with our conversation, Napoleon, because in tonight's program, we are trying to drill deep into the issue of the arts and how we relate with artists during troubling times between nations. Some are saying we should boycott all South African artists in the meantime while the issues simmer down. Or some are saying let's completely forget about bringing them to our country. Let's continue on our own. In the studio, I have with me the National Arts Council of Zimbabwe Chief Executive Officer, Napoleon Nyanhi, to discuss this issue. Now, another contentious issue is that should artists become casualties of political or diplomatic tensions between countries? Mafikizolo, Makadzi, why should they be punished? Why should they not come to Zimbabwe for something that they are not responsible for? They are not part of the marches. They are not doing anything there. What are your thoughts on that? Why should we punish them? Some are saying, look, they should just come because they're artists.
Thank you for that question. When it comes to artists that had been booked in Zimbabwe, that currently there is a movement or an outcry on social media to say, can they please not come? And because of the obtaining situation, which is a situation that is obtained in the last month, leading up to July to June 30, and now as a post Ipanema after effects that we are also seeing. and then the reports that are coming out one by one of violence and all sorts of things. The fact that they have been asked not to come, I do not think it is punishment. I do not see that as them being prejudiced. I see that as the promoters being cognizant of social sentiment. Yes, this may be a political or a diplomatic or a social issue in another country, but the social sentiment on the ground here, it would be unsafe for Mafikizolo to come, or for Makadzi or Daliwonga or whoever it is that they had booked to come and perform. Not because we now say, we now hate you, we don't want you to. No. We're just saying for your own safety. Because Panenon's mob psychology, they may still come. And people may still want to enjoy their music. But panchangoita 1 or 2 achatanga kuita chant mu crowd momo. Because some of these events then zvinezvidakwa. Kwakuma 10 vanhu and vanhu vabatwa nedoro riya vaakuzotanga kuti so hatidi zvemadhisinyongoro or chichi. People may start, and all of a sudden you've got a situation. And now if you've got 10,000 people in that field and they decide to get rowdy, it can be difficult for whether it's the police or security to then be able to contain it. So there is risk of them being removed from stage forcibly. There is risk of them being injured. There is risk of, because it's not them that people are angry with. It's who they are representing when they come. Taakuona mu-South African, hatichaone Mafikizolo, hatichaone Makadzi, taakuona mu-South African, taakuona vanhu vari kutituka, vari kutidzinga, vari kutinetsa. So that's the issue at the moment. To say they're not being punished, they are being told to stay safe. And it also then extends to the promoter and the promotional companies that are booking these artists to say, chimbovamisai tinokumbirawo nekuti even your equipment is at risk. We've seen shows where people get disgruntled and start throwing bottles on stage. Munenge makaisa ma-screen anodhura, makaisa ma-PA system anodhura. There's a lot of things that can get vandalized when people decide that tatogumbuka makaonzirei vana. So just until the temperatures subside, until things have been resolved and things start to make sense, chimbomirai. But in the meantime, chibvai madzidzowo kumboappreciate venyu.
Alright, hanzi naNigel Paravundula, handisi kuramba kuteerera zvemuno, but toswerera hanzi ani hulengende here akomana ndiNigel Paravundulapo.
Nigel, uda kuswererani? Tudza uda kuswerera, alright. Kana musuda kuswerera hulengende. Tudzei kuti vari kunyanya farira kuSouth Africa ndevapi? Ndinokuudzai nini eZimbabwean anogona kumukunda. Hanzi, I totally agree with the approach, but can the local artists give us quality content? You were very passionate about that issue, quality content. Ndouya anonzi chikumbira adaro uyo. Chimwe chinoita kuti muzonyanya zvifarira futi zvekunze inyaya yekuti hamusi kutonzwa kuti vari kuimba kuti chii. Vamwe vacho vanenge vachingoti vhum 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 ganganja vhum vhum vhum. Hapana zvaari kuimba zvine substance, hapana zvekutaurwa ipapo. Asiyanei akuti fadza madzimai, fadza madzimai. It's the same thing. But imi hamudi nekuti chichiona. Mukuda icho.
Hanzi music yekujoza ndabvisa yose mufoni mangu auyatsamwa uyu. Hanzi malocal radio DJs ndo vamwe vanotanga kukuza foreign music. For example, a DJ anoita 3 hours achirova mapiano, all is chief, but in South Africa Zim music is really played on ikoko ndi Moses Bvukurusi in Eyston Park uyo. And then hanzi neumwe uyu. Why punish innocent people? They are not here to stay. People just let them continue with their shows. Chiratidzo Sango Epumula East. that's why punish innocent people. That is the follow up to the question I had raised. And I dovetailing to that, or the counter side is that others also argue that a cultural boycott is a legitimate form of protest. How do you respond to that perspective? It's apart from the safety issue, but just saying as a Zimbabwean, mabatira maita vanhu vedu kuSouth Africa ina hana kufara nawo, saka ngatimbosiyanayo nemi.
There's a very thin line between being reactionary and being an accomplice. Pane zvimwe zvamunoona zvichiitika, munyatsoona kuti izvi zviri kuitwa hazvina musoro izvi, imi moti rikatidzorerewo izvozvo. Tinogona kubva tazodzika kusvika pasame level. So cultural boycott, I do not subscribe to. The mandate of the National Arts Council of Zimbabwe is to promote Zimbabwean culture, and we would like Zimbabwean culture to be accepted the world over, and we would like it to be pushed through film, through music, through dance, through crafts, through sculptures, through all sorts of art mediums. In that sense, we have got no right to boycott any culture in this world, no matter how the custodians of that culture behave in a specific time, whether it's short term or long term, whether they've got specific views of us. We've got a former colonizer who vakatoita maatrocities anotyisa munyika muno. Handiti culture yavo takaitora, chirungu chavo chinochitaura, mbatya tinopfeka, nekutoita busy kupinda mukiyo toda kumboendawo kuUK. Handiti the crimes that they committed are worse. Not to diminish the things that are happening to our people in South Africa at the moment. We're not diminishing them. But I'm just saying a cultural boycott does not necessarily solve anything. And this, whatever we're doing, should not be in the form of a boycott. It's for safety reasons. It's for us not to have a social outcry. It's not because takuto boycott, because vanhu venyu vari kutiningirira saka imi migara ikoko. I personally do not subscribe to that one.
All right, let me go to the messages and clear some of them, because arikuya akawanda. Hanzi vanhu avo vekuSouth Africa varatidza kusada kushandidzana nevamwe, mukatombomira kuridza masongs avo or kuvapinza muno kuzoimba munenge magona chaizvo. Piano song ngadzimiswe full stop. Mai alana avo. And then do we have a right to choose what we want to listen to? Ndimusokuwaya wekumarondera uyo. Just take note of some of these sentiments, and then I'll give you a chance to respond to Napoleon. Anzi, I want Napster be objective. We listen the quality irikuboa. We really want to support, but ndi chikumbiro futi adzoka nenyaya quality futi. Anzi na Dr. Prophet Slay Gogo in Bulawayo. I feel this is the time we learn our lesson, stop feeding other people, look out for our own. It's time for our artists to rise, so that in turn we recognize even up and coming local artists. Until we say Zimbabweans, we will not arrive. Uyu ndiye Camilla anokuitawo majoko sake uyu. Hanzi tiri pahwabada madedido ane basa, piano rakaipa boys, chokwadi munacho. Camelo from Charlotte Brook there. Another one before I ask you to respond to these views. Ichokwadi hapana chavari kunzwa chiri kutaurwa shuwa nemapiano. I mean, support there ndiri Ridzai Winky and Ridzai Winky na JP. Those are some of the views. Responda Napoleon to the various views that have come through. And I must have a right to choose what I want to listen to. If Figizula comes, I might have a right to attend to without being disturbed by anyone. I think I'm just adding also some of the sentiments that have come through with respect to that outcry over that those artists were supposed to come.
There's a thin line between having a choice, developing an appetite, and understanding where that appetite came from. Everyone in this life, from a psychological perspective, everyone in this life was taught to like what they like. For you to have a certain taste to yogurt, for you to even have a certain type, my type of man or my type of girl, munakadai. Someone taught you that. And when we say taught, I'm talking about social conditioning, where you didn't know that you were being conditioned, but there was a certain cousin that you stayed with for a year, and that cousin liked a certain type of guy, and you looked up to that cousin. So without even knowing it, you were being conditioned. And then there was this schoolmate that you had, and then there was this teacher that you looked up to, and then there was this. So all these things, all these social cues, they condition us to start liking certain things. We are not born with tastes. Oh, I've got this taste in clothes, and I've got no. We are taught, we are socially conditioned to like specific things. Currently, Zimbabweans are being socially conditioned to like specific music, certain type of dressing, certain type of. These are things that you're being socially conditioned to through algorithms, through social media, through my influencers, through all sorts of things. You then say, I should be able to choose. You are not choosing. You were conditioned to make that choice. Be very careful when you say, I should be allowed to choose what I want. Because there are specific things for you to be able to see them over and over and over and over. Before you know it, you choose it without even knowing. Washikam shop, you go and pick that thing. You don't realize you're conditioned. You've seen that thing 17 times this week. And subconsciously, you're not noticing it, but it's been placed in front of you 17 times. By the time I'm also trying to shop, you're like, oh, this looks lovely. You think you're making a choice. It has been conditioned. Same goes with music. I gave that example of early 2000s when, as Zimbabweans, and I can testify because I was there and I was one of the people who thought varikuti varireko international music. Yes, it was drastic, and it was drastic, but it achieved a huge thing for the music industry. A lot of the big artists, and XQ, and Japres, and Winky D, artists that are 20 plus years old in the game, because pakapiwa chance. When you are racing, and you are racing a younger person, we used to do this race to manya to end up a starting line. Can I find a younger person or someone who is disadvantaged, maybe by age or whatever, so that they get a head start because they are disadvantaged. Currently, because of social media algorithms and marketing budgets, we are disadvantaged. You think you like Taylor Swift just because you like. No, she's been marketed and shoved down your throat. What a taste for that music. That's what they do. That's how the world. So isusu manje kuti tikwanise kuita marketing budget rekumecha Beyonce atikwanisi kurimecha. That's why sometimes there need to be controls that will control the amount of Beyonce you get, so that tinopo chance kuna Tamimo or kuna Kim Makumbe or kuna. We've got local artists who are doing great things.
For those who have just joined us, the program is State of Affairs here on StyFM, and tonight's program we are trying to delve into the issue of the arts. Should we boycott the South African artists because of the current xenophobia which is happening in that country? I have with me in the studio National Arts Council of Zimbabwe Chief Executive Officer Napoleon Nyanhi. The WhatsApp platform number is 0772162651. I'm tempted to go back to the messages which are really pouring in, but just before I go to the messages, Napster, could such a boycott ultimately harm Zimbabwean promoters, if event organizers and local artists would depend on these concerts? Let's look at also the promoters. When we say let's step back for a while, do you think that this will harm the Zimbabwean promoters?
I don't think so.
Mm.
I do not think so. I think they are their market. When Zimbabwean promoters plan their shows, they know their market. And they know their market is looking for a gig. Their market is looking for a place to go to. And their market will come out. What these promoters then compete on is who is more unique. That's why they end up booking a lot of these, because they're trying to kushamisira. They're trying to show kuti yangu event inoshamisira kupfuura uyu. Saka uyai kuyangu event. Aiwa, ngatishamisirei nemalocal artists.
Anzi natendekai pafew hatidi kuvaona muno guys, zviri nani kuteerera anakona ng'ale. And then another one here, local artists havasi kuprodusa ngoma dzekugochesa nyama. Ungakumbira mugove pabrai here? Abva asekawo zvake uyu. Hanzi dai matorega zvacho sekutomboridza nziyo dzeSouth Africa on our radio stations and TV stations, ivo vari kutiramba, saka tinovanyengererei? Mr. Phil Sekusile Ebulawayo there. And nai kana zvichinzi South Africa hapana kutaurwa zita anti sachingozai kuti hapana anonzi ari innocent as long as is South African bamba zonge. That's why kanyika kedu kachigojairirwa, because we moved to Ameno language only because of accepting zvese Ameno itsitsi here vanhu kumba kwavo mhani vanhu vari kuramba in South Africa. People are bad to me. Even now, even happy they are out of World Cup. Mancliff Southerton. Anzi ngatiridzei nzimbo dzedu munotoisa mapiano iwayo, mapuranga homwe aroda kumixa kuti mapiano aramba achipinda mune yedu. But another question which has all come up is that some argue that South African artists should not be punished for actions taken by immigration authorities or other groups. And if they probably, some love Zimbabwe, but vari kutya kutaura, tovabhana here, because we know maybe anodawo zvezimbabwe, but kuti ataure ari kwake mhomho yeikoko inomomoterawo oluza market yeikoko, zvingaitwa sei? How do we balance that now?
Yeah, thank you for that question. And I agree with that sentiment. I don't think any of these artists can actually speak out against xenophobia or against Afrophobia or the persecution of foreign nationals. I don't think it would be wise or safe for them to speak out against it, because it's very charged on the ground in SA. So for Zimbabweans to say ningi takumboycott because haana kana chaarumbotaurawo dai ari kuita speak out against, no guys, let's be reasonable. These are artists, they shouldn't delve, go into pamwe haasitomboriwo conversant nema-immigration laws and chichichi. Hakusi kufield kwake, haasi activist. Let's not demand that artists become activists. No. Let them be artists. So if they decide not to speak out, they're not going to speak out. They speak out on matters that matter to them. If they want to speak out about child marriages, they'll speak out about child marriages. If they want to speak out against crime or against whatever it is, they have the choice to pick their cause. If they don't have a cause, it's fine. So isusu, we shouldn't force them. The only issue is Gawasawe, because it's not safe for them and for us, for them to come. So we are boycotting because haanawo kana chaarumbotaura, ingava vanhu vari kuuraiwa o vanhu vari kudzingwa, iye uyu haana chaarumbotaura saka ngaasauye. Let's not force people to speak again, to take up our cause.
Yeah, you ate into my question there, where I wanted to ask you about how should artists respond when issues of xenophobia and migrant treatment arise? Should they remain neutral, speak out, or actively advocate for affected communities? Votaura here, vonyarara here, vodi.
Yeah, I think there are many issues that affect communities and societies. And the same way that we as citizens are not forced to support a certain cause, to support a certain movement, or to speak against a certain issue. Let us not force people who are free to choose what they want to choose. Let us not force them to say they should speak out again. There are so many issues. Human trafficking, child marriages, murders, domestic violence. Zvakafanana ne-people movement yakamboitwa futi kuSouth Africa nyaya yedomestic violence. You can't then say ninga haana kuposta people saka ninga haasi kusapota. No. Hazviri kuti ndiri kusapota here or handisi kuda or handisi kuziva or chichichi, but you do not force anyone. So I don't think artists should necessarily be given a specific prescription yekuti when things like this are happening, artists should take a stand. No. It is not right, it is not fair, it is infringing upon their rights.
Is there a danger that today's boycott could invite reciprocal actions against Zimbabwean artists also who may want to go to South Africa? Is there no danger there that if we start boycotting them, they will also boycott some of us? Okay, are we going into how has been our penetration into the South African market as far as live concerts are concerned?
They are not fed Zimbabwean music, so they do not know it. They, up to date, still speak about Oliver Mtukudzi, an absolute legend of Zimbabwean music. But Oliver Mtukudzi was exposed or fed to South Africans as a marketing campaign. And Zivai kuti, yes, he was talented, but he could have still been a non-entity in South Africa. We still have artists right now who are as talented. As much as he's our absolute biggest export as a country for music, we do have young people. Varutopiso. And vanogona kusvika level rake. But he was a product of extensive, clever, well-designed marketing and penetrated the South African market. And they developed an appetite for Tuku music. There is nothing different. Magitare iwayo, BVs, maimbira aita iwayo, the depth of Shona lyrics, the tempo style. I can name 5, if not 10 artists. Vanoenda nemo. But hakuna appetite yacho izvezvi. Because they are not fed Zimbabwean music as much as we feed South African music to our people here, who then develop an appetite for it and who can stand and fight for it to say, piano yedu tinotoida because piano ndeyekugojesa. You developed an appetite for it because you were force-fed that stuff. So kuSouth Africa hakuna market. Kune market yevanhu vemuZimbabwe vakamuva vakaenda ikoko. Ndo vanotodedza maZimbabwean artists kuti auye kuzovaperformera ivo pachavo. They will be in those Zimbabwean on those gigs that we have in South Africa. Maybe tikatoita lucky 2 to 5% of the people attending will be South Africans. The rest will just be Zimbabweans. So the same way yekuti maZimbabweans adzingwa ikoko, and funga kuti there is any bigger boycott that they can do on Zimbabwean arts inopfuura kutoti dzinga kwavaita.
Jealous time, but let me go through the message, then you respond and then also give us your final words as we close the program, because I know my listeners are to support and asa akawandisa zisuper green hands Napster. I hear you. that we can't do bad retaliating, but for security reasons, I think South African artists should temporarily stop coming down here for shows until dust settles. And then Uyanzi Chico. And the 75% local content here in Zimbabwe is also biased. Music from other tribes is not played as much as they play from a certain era. So we find solace in South African music. Take note of that one. Uh-huh. And then we have here Say No to South African Musicians in December Glodina Apo. Uh-huh. And I will teach our local artists to give us quality content. We want to support local content 100%. And we don't want Mafikizolo to perform at this juncture, but Napster's approach is off the rails. It has to do with your fervent support for local artists. So you also respond to that. So you are making us choose what you want us to choose just because we're programmed to be like that. Musoku aya marondera adzoka uyo hanzi yaruda choice yake, which is what is not actually his choice. Zimtulikas is very much welcome because this time local has got so much content and we wouldn't mind the 100%, unlike Rimegoreso when it was imposed on us. So that is basically conditioning us as well to listen to local music. And the director is spot on. Our hearts are in pieces and no one can guarantee the emotional and physical safety of these artists. And that's the real problems for me, the presenters. How can you host a 3-hour Amapiano show? Where is that 75% Pakadaro? And let's face it, if we're trying to be diplomatic, let's not take anything from them. These people don't deserve any audience. The Aaron. Hey, message acho akawanda Napster. Ngatisiye vanhu vasina moyo nehama dzedu titendekai pafiyo. Hey. My artists can be heard, so they are free to speak and educate vamwe vavo, please. Hanzi ngatiridze hedu ana Masha nana Tuku vedu. Hanzi ndiri kuona sepasanganiswa nyaya apa. This is not the first time these artists are being hired. And in this case of Masfikizula, we're not hired the month of xenophobia. This Vic Falls show was since organized around April. I have a lot to say, but time. My Emmanuel Pachitubu. And then finally, I'm sorry I can't take all the messages, my dear listeners. Artists must remain artists. We must not force them to speak out on our behalf against what is happening in South Africa, but for now it's not safe for them to come here. Why? Because people may react very wrong. So Napster, that encapsulates the thoughts of our listeners, Zimbabweans. Your final words and also responding to some of the issues that have been raised here as we close the program.
Thank you very much. There is a listener who raised an issue of music from other tribes in this country and other regions, be they urban or remote regions. I think it is a very critical one. It is an issue for radio stations to look into. It is an issue for even as we are promoting specific things, promoters in their national shows, there are certain categories of our citizens that need a leg up. The same way atambotaura kuti as Zimbabwean artists tinofana kumbopiwawo chance yekuenda pamberi, because being given a head start, because vatiri kumhanya navo vane mamasuro akawandisa. They've got big economies, they've got big backing behind them. So isusu tinofana kupiwa a leg up. We can say the exact same things about specific cultures in the country that need to be given a head start, and where we actually actively go and look for artists in those spaces. We've got 16 official languages in Zimbabwe. One of them is sign language, so maybe we can remove that per music. But of the 15, English, Ndebele, Shona, unogona kuteerera station zuva rese onzwa these 3 languages per music and not hear any other. It is important that we give enough attention towards other languages. Where are the Tonga rappers? Where are the Venda Afrobeat singers? all these other languages, Anandau, Xhosa, and all these are local languages, these are official Zimbabwean languages that need to also get space. So I totally agree with that one. I just thought I'd give that. But in closing, I would like to say, especially to those that are adamant that we allow us to choose whatever music we want to choose, there is harm as a people, as a collective, and I am speaking from a collective perspective. Yes, as individuals, but as a collective, if our collective mindset is towards kusimbisa zvekunze kupfura zvedu, we will harm ourselves. It is kana ya collective yakutonzi self-hate. I'll give an example. Kana mwana wako iwewe ari same class nemwana wepa next door, mune vanhu 25 muclass imomo, mwana wako oita number 25, mwana wepa next door oita number 1. Do you then say ndaakuda mwana wepa next door? Because anogona iwe hauna zvaunoziva iwe uri number 25. You don't disown your child because abuda number 25. You invest, you encourage, you discipline, you do whatever you can kuti mwana improve asvike pa number 10, asvike pa number 4, asvike pa number 2, asvike pa number 1. Asi mazimbabweans toti aiwa vekunze ndo manumber 1 zvindo anogona, takuda ivo vedu haya havagona, ndingaswederera ulengende hereni, ndo vana venyu ivavo. It is a reflection on you and me. It is a reflection on Zimbabwe. Kana zviri zvo zvatiri kuproducer, tiri kuitei kana muri kuti ndo number 25. Personally, I believe what they are doing, these young people, is art. And it is proper yakadaro. But mimi, because you can hear it, and but kana uyu akati vum 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 gonga gong, amutombozeta ruimbo kuti ndo zvamukuda izvozvo, just because zvedu hatidi toda zvepa next door, because iwo wafunga kuti mwana wako arita number 25, taakudawo number 1 uyu, maakuda kunokwereta mwana wepa next door, haasi wenyu, ndewepa next door. That's my closing part and parting shot.
Thank you so much. Okay, but Madzibaba Wele, I'll read your message, but I will not ask NACZ to respond. Hanzi munombo vanyengerere iko vanhu veku-SA ngavasauya kunovaridzire kuparadise kwavo, tit for tat ndomboma. Of course we should boycott their artists. Iko kuva reasonable ndiko kunoita kuti isu mazimbo tishaye value. Ngasauya kuno man, they should take a stand because they are role models. Aruta artists, they also in South Africa, they should also take a stand because they are role models. Thank you, Madzibaba Weli. We cannot go further, but I know that a lot of messages came through, and I apologize that we cannot exceed our time. We have come to the end of our program tonight. We have been discussing the fallout from the forced deportations from South Africa of African nationals and how it impacts the art sector. To boycott or not to boycott, that was the question. Much appreciation to my guest, National Arts Council of Zimbabwe Chief Executive Officer Napoleon Nyanhi. Much appreciation also to my producers, Nomen Muchemwa and Selena Nyamangara. And coming up next is the nationally famous show, Sungura Wednesday. And it's George Msumba. Catch me again next week when we